Good afternoon. I wanted to come on really quickly. Let's see if I can find. It's very sunny here. Gosh, I can't even see in the camera. I just wanted to come on and give you a couple of pointers as to why it is that we teach what we most need to learn. And you may have heard that before, especially if you're in the sort of holistic world, because it's in the holistic world that we have already this fascination with the connection between the mind, the body and the spirit. And you may have heard the term and wonder what exactly it means and why it is that whatever it is we are fascinated in, why it's really essential that we end up teaching it. Because actually the only way to teach something is to have a massive fascination for it. And the reason that you have a massive fascination for this particular subject is because you came here already being that one, so whatever it is you teach, and you forgot all about everything that you already knew. And your fascination for it is because you already are the vibration of that. Sorry, the sun is right in my eyes, I can't see. And so what happens is whatever anybody is teaching, they do not know all about it. I have been called an expert so many times in Pilates, but actually the more that I am willing to not know anything, and the more I'm willing to see the person in front of me and to follow my inner guidance, my inner intuition, my inner knowing, and work with that person, the more I'm willing to let go of what I know, the more I'm going to learn. And the problem with being in the third dimension and the way that we have all been taught that life works is that you have to study something, know it, and then go and do it. But the problem with that is that you don't actually really learn anything. You know, a lifelong passion begins when you start being it and practicing it, which is why practice is so important. So I've only ever employed people who have more connection to that other than qualifications. I'm quite turned off in a way with qualifications, because whenever I see somebody teaching or doing life coaching or transformational coaching or anything else where they've got loads of qualifications but they haven't actually connected so deeply to their own core, that for me they're not actually using the gift of being a constant student. The only way you can be a teacher is to be a student and to realize that you're teaching something that you most need to learn. And this happened for me last night, whereby I've been teaching or not teaching, but I've been working with people over the last 3 days who are in a lot of anxiety at the moment. They're in a lot of stress at the moment. And I found myself last night, for example, going to bed and my mind got quite busy. I went to bed quite late and my mind was suddenly very active with all of the stress that I have been receiving from a lot of people over the last 3 days. And I found myself actually getting quite anxious and caught up in the third dimension of time-space reality, where I was in my head, thinking in my head and projecting onto the future what might happen. And all the things I talk about, I suddenly found myself thinking all of this kind of negative, stressful thoughts. So what I did was I then became my own teacher and taught myself what it is I teach others. And I was able to take myself out of the situation. In other words, I became the observer of my thoughts, which were starting to cause me a little bit of anxiety. Funnily enough, because I've been working with so many people this week who are really anxious. And I took on some of that anxiety in my own system. And so I became my own teacher then. I was experiencing what in the past, I would have started getting so caught up in this story that was going on in my head last night. And I'd read a lot of different things on Telegram and Facebook, you know, before I went to bed last night, and all this information coming up. And what with that and taking on all these other people's things, I found myself getting anxious. So I had to use what I tell others to do, I had to use it for myself. And the result was freaking amazing. I was literally able to be the observer of what I was getting stressed about. So I removed myself out of my third dimensional person. I took myself out. I noticed that I was stressing myself about what I was thinking. So I became very aware of my thoughts. And I had such enjoyment watching myself take myself out of that situation and took myself back into 5D, where I started to experience peace and joy. And what I will say to you, whether you are a teacher or a light worker, or, you know, working with other people, or just experiencing this amount of anxiety, you have to start somewhere, and you have to start practicing coming back into the present moment, because the fifth dimension requires you. The only way to access the fifth dimension is to come back into presence, which means to get out of your head, get out of your mind, and step out as the observer, and then start to allow yourself to experience joy. In fact, what I noticed I was doing in bed last night, I noticed as I was having these stressful, anxious thoughts, that my body became quite sort of rigid, and I was sort of tucked in my bed. And one of the things I did, and this is something that I really is really quite profound, because as humans it's what we do, it's what happens, is that with those thoughts my body became rigid. And so I started to move my body as if I was remembering that I had a body that I was able to experience as pure pleasure. It's gone really dark now. And so there's a whole practice around that, is as you start to come into the present moment, you start to experience more flow, more physical comfort, more access to your physical body and your ability to move and feel and breathe. And this is accessing the fifth dimension. It's really powerful. So just to complete, what we teach is what we most need to learn. It's a wonderful opportunity to become more of who you really are. So I don't know if anyone is going to be able to connect with what I'm saying, but if you do connect with what I'm saying, or if you've got anything from this little sharing, please do let me know, because there's a zillion topics and subjects and titles I feel that I would like to put out here. And that one just kind of interested me, how powerful last night was for me as a teacher, to experience what I need to learn and to remember and to remind myself that the more we practice coming back into presence, coming back into 5D, the more ease and peace we're going to experience in our physical bodies. Our minds will come into a resting place, into an inner peace, a state of inner peace, where we can continue with the flow of our lives. And it doesn't mean don't know what's going on. It's not an avoiding what's going on. It's about not getting caught up in the third dimension and believing that this is true. Because although what is going on, when you step out of it and become the observer, there is a peace that is your birthright, that is there for you, with you all the time, deep inside of you. And that is your birthright. That is your freedom. Have a great day.